Good morning. It's Monday, July 7th, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 21, and my name is Chris. Not a lot happening in the tech news today. There are some stories we're going to talk about that mostly broke over the weekend that I think are worth discussing, but never fret. It turns out July 7th sometimes is a very busy day, in terms of history at least. In 1550, Europeans discovered chocolate on July 7th. 1790, the District of Columbia, or Washington, D.C., as it's also known, was established. Boom! How about that? 1940, Adolf Hitler ordered the preparations to begin the invasion of England, known as Operation Sea Lion, in 1940. And in 1969, Apollo 11 blasted off from Cape Kennedy, Florida. So there you go. There's a little... not every July 7th is a slow one, but it is here. And we're going to cover a few things that broke from Google. Oh, what? I know, a shocker here, but check this out, you guys. Google is making huge investments in essentially taking on Amazon. You guys might have heard about the Google Express. It is essentially a way to do delivery service, Google style, for goods and services. Shopping Express, the service lets shoppers buy things from local retail stores through Google, which then delivers them to consumers from physical retail stores on the same or even next day. Now, this is coming from a source familiar with the matter. They say Google, this is according to Recode, Google plans, according to senior executives, to have set aside as much as $500 million to expand the service nationwide. Google declined to comment on the size of the investment, but has made no secret of its overall ambitions. So the idea here is they want to take on the delivery and ad space. They can combine ads with on-demand delivery for potential advertisers. So with this way this might work is eventually Google may include some type of notification on a product search ad, letting shoppers know that, hey, not only is this an ad for Google, or not only is this a Google ad that you could, find out more about this product, but it's also available via Google to ship to you right away. So you could see how that could be really enticing to certain types of advertisers. And it could, the way they would work is in conjunction with local retailers. So a local retail shop would buy Google ads for people searching for those particular terms in that location. They would partner up with Google Express, and then when the person on the Google ad clicked the item, Google would drive a car to that local retail store, buy the item with the user's wallet money, then drive the item to the destination, the office building or the house. Essentially taking on Amazon directly, but using local retail spaces to power the distribution. So instead of buying huge warehouses and stocking them full of stuff, they buy from the mom and pop store potentially, or maybe Walmart. Now, there is already some cities where this is available, mainly San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York for now. You can visit a dedicated Google Shopping Express website in those areas, and then they choose the goods like groceries, cameras, clothing, all from a selection of retail partners, and then Google drives it to them. So I have assembled our esteemed Mumble colleagues here to talk to me about these tech stories. What do you guys think? Is this an interesting alternative to Amazon, where instead of Google building massive warehouses all over the place, maybe they'll just partner with individual retail locations that are already in those areas? And isn't that more scalable? What do you guys think?
The first thing I thought of is, are those boxes covered with targeted ads? What's going on here?
Yeah. Well, the Google ads will now have a link to just buy the item right there, and Google will drive it to you. So it could be like a huge way to make Google ads more valuable potentially.
I can see that.
Yeah.
The way I see it,
go ahead.
The way I see it is that one of the main reasons people dislike buying from Amazon, but at least that I've talked to, is that they would prefer to support local businesses, and this gives them an avenue to do exactly that with the convenience of sitting in your office chair in your pajamas.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. It seems like the best of both worlds in a way. You get to help the local economy, but you also don't have to leave the house. All right, let's talk about Apple, because we've talked about Google, unless anybody else has any other thoughts on that.
I was going to say it gives Google a history of what you're actually buying, as well as what adverts you're looking at. So from that point of view, I can see that they're going to use this as a big data grab again.
I'd be kind of curious as to how it would work for the person driving around to the stores, because rather than a warehouse where the system knows exactly where the product is, the person driving around to the stores is kind of having to, guess and figure out based on the signs in the store where that product might be.
That's true. You could also, Google could take care of a few problems at once. You attach a few cameras to these delivery cars. You could update your Street View maps, maybe a Wi-Fi sniffer to grab all of the Wi-Fi access points in the area for the location database that Android phones use. Think about all the and plus, like you all guys also mentioned, you get that data collection on the products. So it does make some sense. It adds value to Google AdWords, which is Google's actual core revenue generator. I actually kind of love this too from a business owner standpoint, because maybe I'm here working in the office and I need something that day. I mean, right now my best hope is to wait for Amazon drones to become a reality, but maybe Google could do it sooner, and then you figure how does self-driving cars play into this, right? Think about Google could be the first company to really deploy self-driving cars at scale for delivery. We're going to talk more about that, though, in a little bit. There was a Fireside Chat with Sergey and Larry that I pulled some clips from that is actually the highlight of the show today. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, I want to talk about something that Apple has recently patented that reminds me a lot of an Android app that I already use called Tasker. Apple is developing a system to automatically unlock the iPhone or probably other iOS devices based on your location, like say when you're home. The system works by identifying where the iPhone is and allows users to set safe locations. When setting a security, you could say like in this area don't do my passcode or don't require Touch ID, for example. Based on a dedicated current location, the mobile device can modify the settings and configurations. Security settings are one example of device's behavior that can be modified, but there could be others. The patent could see iPhones unlock within the vicinity of a home, but then locked when out on the street. Of course, the smartphone could determine its location by using the phone's signal itself, Wi-Fi networks, GPS, Bluetooth, etc. At least 2 location indicators will be required to verify the location and create changes in security and software features. The patent also describes a system that could change a user's home screen depending on where the phone is. With work-related apps maybe come up first when you're at work, and maybe TV-related apps come up front when you're at home and it's in the evening. This sounds a lot like Tasker to me, where I have maybe my phone auto-mute when I'm at the studio, and then when it connects to my Wi-Fi network at home, it sends a Wake on LAN packet to my computer at home. It's pretty sophisticated. It makes sense people would build this in. I guess I would like to see this, to me, seems like an important step. We just mentioned the Internet of Things. You have to have, your phone needs to be aware of where you're at. I'll give you an example. It's really minor. It's not a big deal, but I could see how if my phone was a little bit smarter about which building I'm in, it could be a little more useful. There's these Hue lights, and they're really cool. You can change them to any color in the rainbow. They're LED lights. And they're great because they also have an API available to them. Like you can write Python scripts to change the lights, which, think about that in a studio. When the show calendar comes over to it's time to go live, we could have the lights in the studio turn red so everybody knows we're on air. I mean, there's actual functional uses to this. And there's also nice for reading, and it helps with, at nighttime you can have them automatically adjust to different hues so that way it's easier on your eyes, so that way you're not getting the blue light in your eyes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is your phone is kind of dumb about the way it manages it. If you have more than one set, like if I have a set at home and I have a set in the studio, the app is kind of dumb. Like you can kind of make it work, but it'd be really nice if it could just say, okay, the operating system tells me I'm at location B. That means I can, and the app doesn't have to make this discovery, right? The operating system is doing it at a base level. Whereas Tasker, the way Tasker is working is it's monitoring a lot of conditions for me, some of which are provided by the OS, some of which it discovers on its own, and then it makes the changes to the operating system. What I would like to see is the operating system makes a set of APIs available for developers to access because it saves battery life, increases performance, etc. Keeps it flexible with updates. And then, like, for example, the Hue app would automatically say, oh, okay, we're at JBHQ. We use these light profiles. Oh, we're at JB Studios. We use these light profiles. It's a minor thing. You can see how there could be a lot of things, including, like, Wi-Fi security settings and whatnot. An interesting patent, but nothing too groundbreaking. But people suspect there could be more in the works. Okay. Any thoughts, guys?
This looks like basically Apple's answer to the Android L, where they're doing the wearables and how it automatically unlocks with the wearables and whatnot. Sure.
Like the Moto X for a while now has, like, if you have a pin or some other wearable items, it'll in your vicinity of those, it'll automatically unlock in that scenario.
Yeah, so. And as Marissa just said in the chat room, I have Tasker to set up disabled lock screen when attached to my Bluetooth. How is this new? And I'm kind of like, yeah, she's got a point.
Right. This would be OS level, and that's compelling, but it's actually something, it's kind of like the Black Phone. When you dig into what they're doing, there's actually ways to pull it off right now. So it's not too compelling.
I think it's sort of already in Android. You just have to write the app to take advantage of checking the Wi-Fi and stuff.
Right, the location stuff is, yeah, for sure. But like, some of the things that are adjusting some of the other settings and home screen configuration, things like that. There's like launchers that do it already. There's ways to do it already, but it's not like one centralized system. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that develop, right? I mean, because you already have it with the location awareness, because the Android OS is tracking the cell towers, it's tracking the Wi-Fi access points, and it's doing assisted GPS, and then it stores all that to a local database, and then the applications just query that. So a lot of the facilities are already there.
Yeah, there are limitations, though. You're right. You can't turn the GPS on and off from inside an app. You have to do that yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So I want to get to this fireside chat that Google co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin had with Khosla. He's a VC capital guy himself, so he's kind of one of the business. Maybe that's why they were a little more comfortable sitting down. They had a lot of topics they covered, and I pulled just a few clips because I wanted you guys to hear a few things. But the real meat is actually watching these two interact with each other and discuss a whole wide range of topics. But before we get to that, I want to thank our patrons, all 221 of you over at patreon.com/today. What is Patreon? Well, this is how we are funding future projects and endeavors of the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. In the pre-show, I was talking with the Mumble Room about trying to get down to OSCon. But how do you plan for something like that? The gear required, the travel expense, all of that. That's why we want to build a crowd-funded platform of support so that way we can go out, stick our neck out there a little bit, try new things, replace hardware when it fails, invest in certain things, maybe hire a few contractors from time to time to help us out. Patreon.com/today. That's where you can go to invest in this show and the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. Any pledge amount helps. It's only charged once per month. I have a recommended level of $3, but there are other pledge levels in there. If you're passionate about Jupiter Broadcasting, you're passionate about the shows, you can go over there and invest at a level that you feel might be a little more value for value of a trade. And by the way, we also have limited time swag slots available still. We're working these out to be Tech Talk Today exclusives. We have milestones. If you want to see where we want to get to, those would be moments that we celebrate in the show. We're getting really close to our next milestone. I hope it lands, because honestly, this next milestone is as much of a treat for me as it is, well, for me. It's about barbecue, but it's really more about, okay, yay, now Jupiter Broadcasting knows, okay, we can breathe a little bit of sigh of relief. We have this level of funding per month. Now we have a little bit of budget capability. That's what really that next milestone's about, but then I'm going to celebrate it by doing some barbecue. So go over to patreon.com/today, check out those pledge levels, see if there's one there that you go, you know what? This is in line with the value that I get from this network, and I want to keep these shows going, and I want to see where they can take this. Patreon.com/today. And thanks everybody who supports the whole network and the Tech Talk Today show. Okay, so we have this fireside chat with Google co-founders, and they were asked all kinds of questions, and we'll have some links where you can read more about the interview in the show notes. It's worth watching the entire thing, too, if you want. But I wanted to start with a few things that got my attention. So first up, I can't quite remember how you pronounce his name, but the host asked, where do they see Google at right now? And where are things in the state of Google?
I think if there were a couple areas that were critical, then that would be too vulnerable a spot to be in a way. I mean, there are many opportunities to broadly use technology to impact the world and to have a successful business, and we try to invest in at least in the places where we see a good fit to our company. But that could be many bets, and only a few of them need to pay off. I guess from my perspective, running Google X, that's kind of my job is to.
This is Sergey.
To invest in a number of opportunities, each one of which may be a big bet. But I hope, well, I guess you have a portfolio too. But I hope across that portfolio, some of them pay off, and some of them are connected to our existing business, and some not so much. If you look at the self-driving cars, for example, I hope that could really transform transportation around the world and reduce the need for individual car ownership, the need for parking, road congestion, and so forth. So, if that was successful in its own right, I'd be super happy. It's obviously still a big bet. It's got many technical and policy risks. But if you are willing to make a number of bets like that, you got to hope that some of them will pay off.
Mm-hmm. Larry, any particular areas you think are critical to Google's success the next few years? Areas you don't want to screw up in?
I mean, I think we're pretty excited about Android. Android, obviously. I think that, we have our traditional purchases, obviously search and things like that. I think one of the things like people have been confused about, people are like, well, what is Google? Like, why are you guys coherent? And it's really interesting when you look at search, just really trying to understand everything in the world, make sense of it, organize it for people. We kind of said, well, we're doing that, and a lot of the queries are actually about places, and we need to understand places. And then we said, well, a lot of the queries are, about content we can't find, we do books, and so on. So we've kind of been gradually expanding that. And if you look at things like Google Now also, actually, well, maybe you don't want to ask a question. Maybe you want to just have it answered for you before you ask it. That would be better. Originally the I'm feeling lucky button, that was supposed to be, you should be able to skip the search results and go directly to the answer. Unfortunately, it didn't work that well. It was kind of an obtuse naming of the feature. But that was the same kind of idea. And I guess we feel like right now the computers are still pretty bad. I mean, you're just messing around, you're kind of scrolling on your touch screen phone and trying to find, you're in a car and it's bouncy and it doesn't really work. And so I think the actual amount of kind of knowledge you get out of your computer versus the amount of time you spend is still pretty bad. And so I think our job is to kind of solve that. And most of the things we're doing make sense in that context.
So along those...
So he says that the computers are still pretty bad, and most of the things they're doing make sense along those lines of context. Now, I know that's a long clip. I wanted to include it because I want you to hear how the co-founders of Google speak. I want you to maybe hear a little bit how they interact, how they think. These are long form. This is why you don't really see this on like TV, because these are not exactly the most enthralling answers. But this is such an important company in tech, and I think it's extremely important to understand the two people that run it. And maybe we get some small insight into them. So one of the things they're about to transition into is both of them believe there is tremendous potential growth in healthcare, but it's a regulation nightmare. And you think about the privacy implications there too. So it's interesting to see that Google is so seriously considering getting somehow deeper into healthcare.
That leads to another strategy question, and I want to get off this, and I'm going to go a little bit long since we have both Larry and Sergey, so we'll take those extra 10 minutes. Can you imagine, given your interest, you've had some interest in health, there's some radical stuff there, Android is a natural platform for health, mobile is, and health needs to be distributed in highly accessible broadly, not just at the hospital. Can you imagine Google becoming a health company, which may be a larger business than the search business or the media business?
I think it's for sure a larger business. And in fact, Google X, for example, we do have the glucose reading contact lenses. So we do.
Which are very cool.
I don't wear them. I don't wear contacts, and I don't have the need to measure my glucose, but. They should be coming along pretty well. I'm very excited about that. Generally, health is just so heavily regulated. It's just a painful business to be in. It's just not necessarily how I want to spend my time. Even though we do have some health projects, and we'll be doing that to a certain extent. But I think the regulatory burden in the U.S. is so high that I think it would dissuade a lot of entrepreneurs.
We have Calico, obviously, we did with our Levinson, which is a pretty independent effort, focused on health and longevity. I'm really excited about that. I think that I am really excited about the possibility of data also to improve health, but that's, I think what Sergey's saying, it's so heavily regulated. It's a difficult area. I've been giving an example. Imagine you had 10,000 or imagine you had the ability to search people's medical records in the U.S. And any medical researcher could do it. Maybe they have the names removed.
Listen to what he's saying here. Imagine if you had the ability to search any patient's medical records in the U.S. Imagine.
And maybe when the medical researcher searches your data, you get to see which researcher searched it and why. I mean, I imagine that would save 10,000 lives like in the first year.
So if Google had access to this data and could make it publicly searchable, he believes he could save 10,000 lives in the first year.
Just that. And that's almost impossible to do because of HIPAA.
Yeah.
So I do worry, we kind of regulate ourselves out of some really great possibilities that are certainly on the data mining. And
he goes on to talk about how maybe like even just focusing on diabetes could be a major contribution, which I totally agree there. Last one, because this is the one I know you guys all care about, the future of self-driving cars.
We talked a little bit about self-driving cars. How large a change do you think that can cause to happen in society? Either one of you speculate on how large a change that might mean. It's more than just the software.
Yeah, I hope it can be a really dramatic change. I mean, off the bat, of course, there's the many people who currently cannot get around if they're too old, too young, disabled, and so forth. But that's, still just a fraction of the population. I think the bigger changes can come to the community, the lifestyle, the land use. I mean, so much of our land in most cities, about 30 to 50% is parking, which is a tremendous waste. And also the roads themselves, which are both congested and take a lot of space and are just unpleasant. So the self-driving cars, you don't really need much in the way of parking because you don't need one car per person. They just come and get you when you need them. And you can also make much more efficient road use and this is not something we've developed yet, but it's certainly been simulated by many. They can form trains, they can go at high speed, perhaps much higher than our highway speeds here. Fundamentally, they can just make much more efficient use of the space and therefore people's time.
That is one of my favorite topics, is sort of theorizing how much the world could change if people had on-demand cars and didn't have to necessarily own a car, or there was collective ownership, or it was something like, maybe a family only had one car, and the car would drive itself back to my house after it drops me off at the studio, so that way my wife and kids could use it, and then towards the evening, they would send it back over here so I could drive it home. Wouldn't that be interesting? They also didn't get a clip because I figured that was probably enough for you guys, but you can watch the whole video. I'll have it linked in the show notes. They did also talk about the 40-hour work week, and how they both acknowledge they think that while there's a lot of automation coming, specifically because of some of the things they're working on, they need to come up with a way for people to find quote-unquote things to do. That way they feel needed. And they talk about maybe the most attractive way to handle this problem is just to reduce the work hours. No longer need a 40-hour work week. Just tell people, hey, only work 4 days a week. They don't really address how you would make that up monetarily, but they say most people would invite a little extra time. Instead of phrasing it as doing a massive work reduction, phrase it as, hey, you get one more day off. So that article is linked in the show notes, too, if you're interested in watching that. Okay, so last bit of just a couple of business items. Please go over to techtalktoday.reddit.com to help participate in the content that makes it into the show so I get an idea of what types of stories you want. Do you like Bitcoin stories? Do you not like Bitcoin stories? Make your voice heard. techtalktoday.reddit.com. I'd also love your feedback today at jupiterbroadcasting.com, or click the contact link at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting website. And one of the things I'd like to hear, you can leave a comment on the YouTube video, in the subreddit, or in an email. Do you like the retro commercials? I haven't got a good sense. I'm thinking about maybe I'll put them out to pasture. I liked them as a good way to kick off the show. I thought it was fun. It sort of mocked the fact that we didn't have an advertiser, but the Patreon milestone for that was reached a while ago. So maybe that joke should have been put to bed when that happened. I stuck with it, though, so we'll sign off tonight with one more classic commercial. I hope you have a good day today. I hope you have a great week, and I hope you join me today, tomorrow, and the rest of the week over jblive.tv, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, for Tech Talk Today, Monday through Thursday. Of course, it's available for download with RSS feeds, and it's also available in the iTunes directory, where we appreciate your comments and ratings to help other people find the show. And I leave you now with a classic item you've just got to buy.
Introducing the Sloppy Joe, a brand new dance. From Libby's, the people who make Sloppy Joes. Just heat and eat. And swing to the beat. Nothing like it anywhere. Get beef or pork. What do kids think of it?
Man, it's the sloppiest.